What's going on, family? We are going to try this again because unfortunately, last video that I just shot, which took me like an hour to do, for whatever reason, did not record the audio. So, if you just want to sit there and watch me on a video where I'm just kind of then feel free, let me know in the comments and I will upload that one because that's pretty much all it is an hour of me in utter and complete silence with my lips just going. Anyway, so, I'm going to summarize the update that I just gave because I don't feel like attempting to say everything that I just said all over again. In the same way. I don't even think I could if I wanted to because it was a more than anything else flow of consciousness way of explaining things and not really structured or scripted because that's not what I do. So, that being said, let me go ahead and give you the update that you have all been waiting for, looking forward to, so on and so forth. Health. In response to the whole sepsis situation, I am still currently on the upswing of recovery on the back end of that. The impacted area, the primarily impacted area, was my left calf and foot, because they were swollen to the point of, my left leg in general. The swelling had reached up to the point of almost hitting my groin when things were at their worst, when I was an idiot and drove 70-something miles out of Louisiana just to get to, not out of Louisiana, but through Louisiana just to get from one point to another before I decided to go to the hospital. Anyway, the pain involving the entire scenario is almost null and void at this point. It's kind of a dull soreness that only really flares up to any degree when I decide to move my toes. Which I decide to move my toes once every few seconds in general at this point out of habit, just to keep the blood flow going and to promote mobility and avoid problems. It's probably going to end up turning into a nervous twitch if I leave it be, but we'll see. I'd rather have that as a nervous twitch than lose a toe because of that poor circulation over this whole situation. Anyway, so that is what it is. The level of swelling has lowered to the point where, as opposed to just being able to wiggle my toes, there's a certain point when your foot is swollen, when your leg is swollen, that you can't even wiggle your toes. And then there's a point where you can kind of sort of wiggle them, but there's not a lot of motion. Then you get to the point where there is a decent amount of motion. And then you get to the point where I am, which is, not only do I have a pretty solid range of motion in my toes, but I actually have grip strength. So I have the ability, I have a rug on the floor that I keep in the van for the comfort of my feet, because I don't want to get there's a certain type of sore you can get when your feet are just planted on something hard for extended periods of time in general, and I can't think of what it's called. But anyway, I never want those sores on my feet in general, so I made it a point to get this. It's originally meant to be used as a seat cushion, and it's rubber, but it doesn't quite do the job it should as a seat cushion, but it works perfectly fine as a floor mat. With it being rubber, that's even better in terms of cleanliness and being able to clean it if I need to clean it. But anyway, it works very well as far as keeping my feet comfortable and avoiding those patches of sore foot muscles from just sitting on the bare floor. But I have enough grip strength in both of my feet now, let alone the one that hasn't been affected, in order to move that floor mat around without any trouble. I'm playing with it right now, to be totally honest. And it doesn't add any pain or anything to my situation. Nothing noticeable or that I would be willing to care about. So yeah. Generally speaking, it's working in my favor. I have that level of grip strength, and I have enough strength in my toes to not only press down like that, but press up like that as well. So, and I can actually, I almost forgot to mention this. Actually, I didn't mention this in the other video. So, good thing I got to redo this video. I have the ability to actually circle my foot, so I can extend, bend, and shift inward and outward the actual foot from the ankle's perspective. So I can actually do circles with my foot, something I couldn't do while I was definitely couldn't do while I was in the hospital. And I don't think I honestly could do as of a day ago, maybe 2 days ago. Give or take. But yeah, I have that level of functionality in my foot at this point. Getting in and out of the van, the concept of putting pressure on my foot as I get out of the van is becoming less and less of a mental strain, because the actual pain that comes from putting the pressure on the foot, it just so happens that the swollen leg is the leg that I have to put my weight on in order to get in and out of the vehicle. At least until I get the quality of life item that I purchased recently, which will help with getting in and out of the vehicle in general. Yeah, that whole concept is easier for me, period. It doesn't hurt as much. It doesn't cause the weird tingling sensation. The only way I can really describe that sensation is when something's swollen and you're bending it probably a little bit farther than you should be bending it. So it kind of feels like the blood vessels want to pop. That kind of sensation, which comes off as a bit of a tingle, but not quite pain. It's hard to describe. It's really hard to describe. Anyway, that's going away. So I'm happy there. The idea and concept of getting in and out of the vehicle is getting better. I feel like I'm using less energy. I need less energy to do that, but I still need to go through the process of getting my mind together to do that. So that's gonna be fun. It's always gonna be fun. Until I get back to, I guess, the point of general normalcy when it comes to my legs across the board. I'm probably gonna be dealing with that to whatever degree. So, but that's getting easier on me. That's basically what this all boils down to. That's getting easier on me as a whole. So everything's like I said before, on the upward swing. I am pretty sure the swelling is going down because the amount of pressure. So they rewrapped it on Tuesday. Today's Thursday. The amount of pressure that I feel from the compression of the wrap they put on Tuesday feels slightly less, which tells me that the volume of my leg has gone down to some degree. It could be me being hyper aware of that and it being noticeable to me. It could be significant enough of a volume descent or drop that it's noticeably different. I don't know which because it's not visually very obvious. I guess to the outside person, my leg looks about a normal size anyway. Particularly if you compare the two, the one that's wrapped up doesn't look much bigger, if at all, than the one that isn't wrapped up. And if you stare at them long enough, you'll probably think the main reason they look different is because of the wrap. But the left one is definitely still swollen. Anyway, the antibiotics that they have me on, I've been doing pretty good at keeping up with. I believe they only really gave me enough to last me until early next week at the latest. So we'll see how things play out once I'm no longer on that. And I'm hoping this is something that actually helps the situation in general. I do have a lymphatic supplement that I started using pretty much while I was in the hospital. Like I ordered it right before I got in the hospital, but I didn't start using it until like my second or third day in the hospital. But the guy that I spoke to on Tuesday about my situation as a whole said I should probably stop just because it may or may not be having a negative impact on the antibiotics. So I decided, it's not a big deal. I'll wait till I'm done with the antibiotics and see how that plays out. But yeah, hopefully that supplement and utilizing my massage gun, particularly in the area where the lymph nodes are for my legs, will have a positive impact on the swelling of my legs in general. I don't see that necessarily having, playing a role with the infection or the healing of the hole in my leg, but I figure by the time the antibiotics treatment is over, I will have progressed far enough, if I haven't already progressed far enough, to really not need that, and the healing process of my leg will go the normal route that it should, given the traumatic fact that a hole has been put in my leg. My body's been through a lot the last few years. Anyway, that leg has been through a lot the last few years. That's the same leg that had metal rods bolted to my skeleton to keep my leg from moving when I had my knee surgery. The other one didn't get that because I had a proper external cast that they basically wrapped and strapped that leg down in so that it wouldn't move. I had one for the left leg as well, but I didn't have access to it at the time that the surgery went down, so we had to do things the hard way. Anyway, yeah, things are moving forward on that. The only thing I really want to add to this is I don't really feel like going into all the tangents that I went into with the other video in general, because a lot of that stuff really is meant for other videos and other conversations in regards to the not expansion, but the work that I need to do to get my business the way I want it to, my work-life scenario the way I want it to, my vehicle situation the way I want it to. That one I will touch on because I want to cover that as much as possible so that people know what I want and can keep an eye out and maybe reach out to me when they find something that is helpful to me, hopefully with the right timing, so that if I'm lucky enough to have the money on hand, I can afford to get it myself, or somebody be kind enough to actually bless me with what I need so that I can move forward and utilize what I have to augment that on the back end. Anyway, so if you just came for the healthcare update, this is pretty much the point in time where I'm cutting that off, at least for the most part, because I don't really have much more to say. And I'm going to get into the next area of what I want to talk about, which is the vehicle. So, and this does kind of play into the quality of life situation and the healthcare situation or self-care situation in general, but because of the size of this van, like it's a blessing and a curse. And honestly, I just haven't had the energy, time, and wherewithal simultaneously to properly organize it the way that I see it in my head. So I've gotten all the things together the way I wanted them to be together, but I haven't gotten them all put where they need to be. So that's why you kind of see the weird amalgamation behind my head at the moment, because it's organized and disorganized at the same time. There's a grid cube, or a series of grid cubes on either side of the van that have a bunch of boxes in them, which those boxes have items, generally speaking, organized in them to some degree. I'm mostly done with all of that, but not completely done. I didn't have enough with the two grid cube kits that I bought. I didn't have enough to cover all of the space I wanted to cover, so I kind of just did what I could do to work with what I had and just fit things where they would fit outside of that, and ran with it until I got the third kit, which is sitting back there, well, roughly behind my head right now. That's the box you see right there. The third kit should solidify all of the cubes that I need in order to have everything organized the way that I want, which should give me the base level space to move between the front and the back of the van, have access to all of the stuff that goes into my display. So all of the milk crates and whatnot, maybe not easy access, but general access. And enough access to be able to at least set up the small laser cutter inside the van. And I have a chair that's back there as well that's small enough to give me enough headroom to be safe, or short enough, I should say, to give me enough headroom to be safe. It swivels, and it's sturdy enough to support me. It's kind of a situation that I spliced together between a couple of the chairs. One that had the base that was able to support me, but not the seat. Another one that had the seat that was able to support me, but not the base. So yeah, and I'm hoping to salvage a couple more chairs like that, so that I can utilize them in general, in places that I frequent or have some form of an established space for myself in. I got friends who have spaces that they've set aside for me to help me out with running the business. So I'm not gonna get into all of that right now. But anyway, that once I get everything organized in here, that should be fine. A lot of this has been me picking up over the course of time things that I need in order to function better, but not having or making the time to get them all organized where they need to go. The only exception to that is the new walker and the new wheelchair that I got from the hospital. I wasn't expecting either of those. So they are additions that came out of the blue that are helpful, but I didn't really have a place for them. So hopefully this weekend will work out and I will be able to get a chance to some degree gut this space so that I can reorganize this space and find a good place to put the wheelchair, specifically the wheelchair, because the walker doesn't take up that much space, so I'm not really worried about that. But that's the short-term situation. The long-term situation and what I am really after that would be the most advantageous for my situation as a whole, I want a shuttle bus. I'm after a shuttle bus. So I want everybody to keep their eyes out for a shuttle bus that is at a reasonable price, or that is being donated for whatever purpose, that hopefully is in at least half decent condition when it comes to the engine and the inside of the vehicle. But anyway, at the end of the day, when I see what I see, I'll judge it and decide whether or not it's worth my time or not. But anyway, I don't just want a shuttle bus. I'm looking for something that is roughly 16 to 20 feet in length. And specifically, very, very specifically, I am looking for something that is, for lack of a better way of describing it, a van cutoff. So, you know how with most shuttle buses, the front end either looks like a van or a truck, and then the back end has, all the seats for the shuttle bus. What I'm looking for is something that the front end looks like a van, but specifically it has the driver and passenger seat in the front, because the majority of shuttle buses out there, they have a driver's seat obviously, but then instead of having a passenger seat or even the door over in that area, it's been modified and it's kind of just like an open space, and kind of like halfway back from where the door would be is the shuttle bus door with the stairs and everything for the people to get in and out. What I'm looking for is something that has all of that behind the passenger seat. So I want an actual passenger seat. That's pretty much my primary need in regards to that, because I want to be able to at least bring one person with me when I go to shows sometimes, depending on where I'm at or what I'm doing. I have friends that are willing to help me out here and there. And as an example, I got a friend in Rockford or near Rockford that's willing to help me out at shows. If I get something scheduled in that area, I can call them up or message them or whatever and say, hey, I'm doing a show this weekend, whatever weekend that may be. I, of course, we'll try to get them a few weeks ahead of time just so that they have time to prepare. Anyway, I'm doing a show this particular weekend, not too far from you. Do you think you have the time to help me out for the weekend. And if they agree, then I have space for them to be able to sit in the vehicle while I'm driving and be safe because they have, a seatbelt and all of that nonsense. But at the same time, enough room to be able to, like, if we're sharing a hotel room or whatever, they can put all of that stuff in the back. And there'd be just general room for them to do so without feeling crammed or cramped. And we can move along like normal. That's what I'm really after. That's the ultimate setup that I'm looking for. I don't mind not having a passenger seat because I know my habits, and if I don't have a passenger long enough, that ends up becoming some form of storage anyway, whether it's snack storage so that I can have easy access snacks while I'm driving so I don't have to pull over just to eat something to raise my sugar levels or whatever the case may be, so I have enough energy to feel like I can drive the distance that I need to drive. Or just, if I'm straight up hungry, but I have easy access items that I can eat while I'm driving without having to stop, that's something that I end up doing with that space. I'm getting actually a little bit hungry, so that's why I'm starting to pause. I'm thinking about what I want to eat once I finish doing this video. Anyway, that's my main thing. I want that passenger space so that I can have that help be available, because as it currently stands, because of the limitations of space that I have here, I'm utilizing that space in a way I don't really want to utilize it, and I rather, if somebody's willing to help me with something, I'd rather be able to have enough space for them to be able to get in, bring whatever things they have that they need with them to help me or to help themselves or whatever the case may be, and we can move forward without any issues or limitations. But I don't know how hard it is, truly how hard it is to find one of those vehicles. And I'm only looking passively right now because I have a vehicle right now. And honestly, I don't have the funds to be able to get another vehicle right now to replace this one. This was a fantastic gift from a friend who caught me in the middle of the emergency of my previous van eating its own engine for the most part, and gifted me what I needed, but not necessarily what I wanted. Because there's a lot of quirks in regards to this vehicle that are just annoyances that I could do without. I could live without, but I accept them because this was what I had access to at the time of my need, and beggars can't be choosers. I could not be picky. I could not really complain without it coming off as being a bad gift receiver. So I chose not to. And, I got what I got. It works, or at least I've been able to make it work. But I don't want to say I've been fighting back my hoarder tendencies, but because I honestly don't feel like that's the case. I feel like it's just been me not being able to organize the things that I get as I get them fast enough to keep the space open enough for me to move around in consistently and functionally. That's really what it boils down to. I just again, energy, timing, wherewithal, and in some cases mental fortitude. But sometimes I just look at The bathrooms, like, I don't even feel like getting there today. I don't have the time or energy. So the shuttle bus, I know, will fix all of that because it'll give me the amount of space that I actually want, give me the amount of height that I actually want, because I do want to be able to stand up in the vehicle to some degree, even if it's slightly hunched over. I'm okay with that because with the walker, I'm slightly hunched over, so it's not like it's another position that I am unused to. It is one of the things that I miss about the bus because I had more than enough overhead with the bus and had no complaints whatsoever with headroom. But that didn't work out, and honestly, I feel like that was an experiment that went both right and wrong, because there's a level of feasibility behind being able to do a city bus, like revamp a city bus into essentially an RV slash mobile workspace. But the infrastructure, as far as dealing with repairs are concerned, is still too niche to validate something along those lines. Like, it's cool that I was, doing the whole trailblazing thing, because hardly anybody uses the city bus for this kind of thing. Everybody uses school buses, so on and so forth. But, I appreciated having the ramp because it was good for me with the mobility scooter and the wheelchair and the walker, just in terms of getting in and out of the vehicle. Moving the display setup in and out of the vehicle, it was a great option for dealing with all of that. The headroom was phenomenal. The amount of general space to be able to have a workspace separate from an eating space, separate from a sleeping space, that was phenomenal. I do miss having such a huge vehicle and just, being on the road, and seeing the looks that I got from people randomly when they just saw a city bus from a city that they didn't even remotely recognize, putting past them to whatever degree. I will not miss, especially given today's economy, I will not miss how much the gas costed, and the fact that I only got like maybe 5 or 6 miles to the gallon, which is one of the main reasons that I'm limiting the length of the vehicle to about 20 feet, because I figure with all the things that I could do in terms of tweaking the engine and getting things updated and cleaned and tuned up and yada yada yada, I may not be able to match something like this and get like at best 17-ish, 18-ish miles to the gallon, but I'd be cool with 15. Honestly, I'd be cool with 15. Because it does the job. I mean, when all said and done, on average, this van gives me about 15. I did get to enjoy a miraculous experience on my way here, back from Louisiana, when it comes to that. So normally when I drive, I usually have either the AC. Yeah, I usually have the AC on to some degree, because over the winter, keeping over the summer, keeping cool. I've enjoyed the AC more than having the window down, so it is what it is. But with running the AC unit, I usually don't have the low gas light come on till around 390-ish miles of driving off of the tank. On the way back here, I did end up turning off all that in order to... Something in the back of my head just said I don't really need it. And as I got further north from down there, the climate was changing on me and it was getting cooler in general, so I felt less and less of a need to have the AC on. And it's a decent temperature today in general up here. I'm pretty sure that in comparison to down there, it's stupid hot and humid and whatnot. And, but anyway, so like I was saying, the last leg of the trip, after I stopped at my friend's house to get a little bit of rest and take the last leg with a fresh set of eyes, ears, and brain. I want to say, if I remember correctly, the gas light didn't turn on, the low gas light didn't turn on until around 417 miles. Which I want to say that low gas light means I'm down to like 3 gallons, maybe 4 gallons. Actually, let me think about that. Yeah, probably 4 gallons, because I get at least, like worst case scenario, I get about 15 miles to the gallon. And when I went to get gas, factoring in driving to my destination with the gas light on, and then the only other trip that I made after that point was to go get gas, because I had a friend that was willing to pump gas for me so I wouldn't have to get out, which just made the idea of getting gas way more feasible. And again, it's one of those things that able-bodied people don't think about when you're not able-bodied. Thoughts like that cross people's minds when they're driving. Do I really need to get gas right now? Do I want to go through all of the physical effort involved with me getting out of my vehicle the way that I have to get out of my vehicle and move the way that I move to get to the gas tank, to get to the pump, and so on and so forth? Do I want to go through all of that right now? Or can I save it till tomorrow? Can I save it till later? Things along those lines. That's something that we think about when we're not at normal health. When we're not like a normal able-bodied person in a standard situation. I don't think a lot of you guys think about that kind of thing. So just a little something for you to chew on there. But I'm gonna say it probably kicks in. I got a 30 gallon tank. And it kicks in roughly when the line hits the 1/8 of a tank. So yeah, about 3 or 4 gallons left in the tank. So 417 miles divided by 26 gallons. Yeah, I was pushing about 16 miles to the gallon at that point in time. I want to say my normal is probably, when I have the AC on and whatnot, my normal is probably like 14 and a half to 15. But that made a difference. That mile and a half to the gallon definitely made a difference when it comes to 30 some odd gallons, because it could have kicked in while I was downtown in Milwaukee before I got to the north side of town. Could have kicked in before I got to Milwaukee. But it didn't kick in until I was roughly a mile away from my destination, so I was happy about that. I felt good about that. And I ended up filling up the tank when I reached about 425. And if I remember correctly, I put in 27.3 gallons at that point. So, now that I'm thinking about that, I can go ahead and do the little quick math on that just to see what the overall mileage that I got was for that situation. Okay, that was still 15.5, 15.6. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for in terms of a standard for the shuttle bus that I'm looking for. About 15 miles to the gallon is a solid number. If I could tweak it to be like 17 or 18, that'd be phenomenal. But I'm not gonna trip about that because I know what I'm hauling. So yeah, that's what I'm after. That's what I'm looking for. If you come across anything, let me know. Just keep your eyes out. Keep me posted. Because I'd rather know about something even if I can't utilize it right now, and just kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on with that kind of stuff, versus waiting until I absolutely need it and I'm desperate for it on some level or another, and end up having to shift to another vehicle that I'm not really quite happy with, just so that I am functional and not down and out. Like I don't want to play that game anymore. I never wanted to play that game to begin with, but at the same time, it was a game that I pretty much decided that I would become a part of because of my financial situation. And all things considered, this is a perfect tangent to jump onto that particular boat, and then in the video. But yeah, I do intend on doing what I need to do in order to figure out that whole work-life balance that everybody under the sun has the hardest time dealing with. And situating myself with a financial situation that is at least slightly advantageous to me, if not actually abundant. The question of the day, honestly, at the end of the day, is how to do that with consistency given the nature of what I do. Because not every show that I apply for do I actually get into. And that plays a role. Also, where those shows that I get into are and where I'm willing to drive play a role. It's like this past scenario is a perfect example. What was supposed to happen over that 2-week period in general was I was supposed to go to Atlanta and do a gaming con there, and then from Atlanta drive over, and I was in Chicago-ish at the time, around Chicago. Anyway, I was supposed to go to Atlanta, do a show in Atlanta for that weekend, and then from that show, make my way to Louisiana and do that show, and then make my way back up to Wisconsin, or this general area. But things didn't quite play out that way, and I didn't end up doing the Atlanta event because of vehicular issues that turned out to not be as bad as they seemed. Like there were some issues going on. There are some issues going on with the van that need to be addressed. But the assumption of how soon they needed to be addressed was way worse than the diagnostic that I got when I took it to the shop to be addressed. So, you know, I'll be dealing with those issues as soon as I can. But at the time, I thought that they needed to be taken care of before I could get on the road, because they would end up leading to me being stranded somewhere and unable to get to my show anyway. So I reached out to the show to let them know that I couldn't make it due to vehicular problems. Never heard back from them, so I don't know what they ended up deciding one way or the other when it comes to me. We'll see when I apply for next year. But that was just money lost at this point because I couldn't make it. But since I ended up missing that show, I didn't go to Atlanta, and I didn't make any money in Atlanta, which means I drove straight to Louisiana, and that was an unnecessarily long drive that could have been broken up had I gone to Atlanta, and better funded had I gone to Atlanta, in order to get me to Louisiana, which hopefully I would not have had to deal with this whole sepsis situation, but who knows? Maybe I would have. And then make my way back up here. Because that's the way I try to plan things. If I'm going to do a distance of more than 1,000 miles in general, I would like to get at least 2 shows under my belt, if not 3, in the course of that space, or the course of that distance. But there are situations that play out like that. Like another good example is there's one time where I found myself driving from Wisconsin to West Virginia, and then West Virginia to Minnesota, and then back to Wisconsin. And it was like, you know, if these 2 shows had been flipped, I could have done that in a more advantageous way and not driven so many miles to do the whole process. But I try to be efficient with how far I'm driving, where I'm driving, and how many shows that I'm doing, because the more shows that I can do back to back, the more driving that I can do in general, just going places, because I'm partially funding the trip between points A and B with whatever happened at point A, and between B and C with whatever happened at point B, so on and so forth. Which is why the concept of me doing shows every weekend did not bother me, because it meant that I would be constantly on the road, going from show to show, and being able to fund the driving process from this show to the next show, and kind of continuously keep that going until the end of that streak. And then whatever happened at the end of that streak, I would, make my way back to home base, and whatever accumulated funds that I had over the course of all of that was what it was. But at very least, at absolute very least, I could fund traveling from one convention to another from the previous convention. And that's one of the things that makes doing this for me worthwhile, because it allows me, when I'm doing 2 or 3 shows back to back like that, it allows me to actually do them all, and it makes sense. Because if I'm just expecting to pay for the gas for the entire thing from the first show, that may or may not work out in my benefit depending on how well I do at that show. And that plays a role with the next show, and that plays a role with the next show, as well as how much I get done in between shows, and the distance that I have to travel. Because if I got to drive like 7 hours a day, every day, to get to a show, I'm not really going to spend much time doing any work in between. I'm not going to have the energy and to be tired from driving all day. But if I can break up a drive to where I'm doing 2 or 3 hours a day, even if I'm driving every day of the week, if I'm driving 2 or 3 hours a day, that still gives me a good solid 4 to 6 hours to get work done, whether that's commissions that I'm catching up on or restocking inventory for the next show. So theoretically, it all makes sense. It all works very well, as long as I have the energy, mental capacity, and general wherewithal to get the things I need to do done. But when things are like this, and my ability to move around to get to the things that I need to get to in order to set up shop are very difficult and generally disadvantageous, it throws a wrench in all of that. So the more that I can do inside the vehicle, the better, because it minimizes my need to get out of the vehicle, to move around the vehicle, and figure things out. And 2, and this is actually a hidden thing that I didn't think about until after I bought the bus, that played a major role in the value of that bus, the city bus, for me, which I'm sure I will find something similar or be able to mimic or make something similar in the shuttle bus if it doesn't have it itself. But the mobility bars that were all over the bus, the railings that were across the top, the handles that were between the lower level and the upper level in the back, all of these places that I could grab onto where I could utilize my upper body strength to help my lower body do what it needed to do in order to move around inside the vehicle. That was a absolute game changer for me. And if that's something I have to recreate, so be it. But I will recreate that to the best of my ability, regardless of what kind of vehicle that I have, as long as I have the space to stand up in the vehicle, because it only makes sense to be able to have that for standing. Also, those bars worked well for me to actually have, instead of bothering to build a bed, I literally utilized a hammock. I made it kind of semi-permanent. I mean, it would have been easy to take down or set up when I felt like it, but mainly because I did it at a time. I did it just ahead of the time that I needed to, in order to, when I started utilizing the bus the way I needed to utilize it at the time, I was in recovery. I was in heavy recovery mode. I never took it down. So it ended up being a perfect setup for my situation. And I'm not going to get into the trade secrets that I have for it, but I done it in such a way where it was modular, and it allowed me to raise and lower my legs as I needed to, almost like a hospital bed. But I was essentially floating in a hammock, and the mobility bars that were in the back of the bus are the main thing that gave me that functionality. And I love that so much that I definitely intend on recreating that for my shuttle bus setup. I don't, depending on how it's laid out, that'll depend on where the hammock goes and whether or not I make it so that it's easy to set up and take down or not. But it did the job, and it did the job extremely well, and I will remember that forever. And that is like my favorite sleeping setup, period. It was actually a hammock chair, but it wasn't a straight up hammock. It was a hammock chair, but I had set it up in such a way that I was able to easily get in and out in my condition, and I was able to raise and lower my legs to whatever height that I needed to for the sake of comfort as well as the sake of recovery. Yeah, those bars were a game changer. Those bars were phenomenal, and I will repeat that when I get my next vehicle that I'm able to move around in standing up. Honestly, I don't really have much else to say at this point. I'm hoping that putting this information out there helps me actually get what I'm after, because I've been holding on to this information for the longest time and utilizing my intent to focus on it and dream about it and think about it and hope for it and pray for it and yada 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 hasn't gotten me there yet. So I figure putting the bug out there so that other people know what I'm after and why I'm after it, for the most part, may be helpful in me getting where I want to go, because even though I am happy with this vehicle for the most part, I know I want more. I know I need more. And honestly, I feel like this would do better as a very good backup that I stored somewhere for periods of the time, or it would work good as a secondary unit. When I needed more stuff for a particular show or something along those lines. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for caring. I appreciate you guys. Thank you to those who have been able to help me keep things afloat while things have been stagnant. I'm hoping that I can either figure out something once roughly another week has passed and I feel better enough to be able to get some work done again. When I reach the point of being able to transition into working again, as far as just getting laser cutting stuff done, having the wherewithal to get all the stuff out of the vehicle, yada yada yada, having the energy and the flexibility and the physical comfort of motion to work again. When I get to that point, hopefully I can figure out something, or we can figure out something that keeps the money flow stable enough for me to survive my current situation until my next show and through, because I know I for whatever reason I do better at shows than I do online. I don't know what the formula is online to properly sell the things that I make. I really feel like people prefer to touch the things that I make in order to buy them, because they're textile items, so it just makes sense to me. But hopefully a friend will be kind enough, who understands selling the kind of things that I do online well enough to tell me whatever I've been missing so that I can actually get some online sales going. Because if I can get some online sales going, while I'm generally non-mobile or semi-non-mobile while I'm healing, while I'm recovering, but recovered well enough to actually get some work done. If I can get some online sales going, that would be phenomenal. And all I want to be able to do is keep some gas in this vehicle, keep the insurance paid for, keep my insurance in general paid for, business insurance, personal insurance, vehicular insurance, blah blah blah. But yeah, keep the vehicle running and keep food in my mouth and continue to do the shows. That's all I really want to do. That's all I really care about doing. And of course, making content to share with you guys. That's all I really care about really dealing with. So, whatever help can get me there, can keep me afloat to the point where I can help myself do what I want to do and be happy with the lifestyle that I've chosen and the situation that I've created for myself. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for. Because, honestly, I didn't ask to be in all of these situations that I'm putting out all these fires and dealing with all of this drama and whatnot that has overflowed my plate for so many years, that have kept me from being able to do what I want to do the way that I want to do it, because I've been too nice of a person to tell people no when I just should not be helping them. Not that I could not help them, I just should not be helping them, because it's to the detriment of myself. And I'm understanding that better now. I'm learning. I'm figuring it out. Anyway, like I said before, thank you for being here. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for caring. Hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, all of that happy nonsense. And I feel like I'm repeating myself because I said this in the other video. I don't think I just said this in this video. But anyway, thank you. I appreciate you guys. I hope that the support keeps coming and that I am able to utilize the support until I can support myself again properly. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And I will see you on the next video. Peace.